Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
Hello everyone and welcome to KYE Interactive. I am your host Trupta Colbert-Nadkarni. This digital platform, as you all know, is so awesome because it gives me a chance to get to know entrepreneurs, to get to know their stories. And of late, we've also interviewed entrepreneurs who've been on Shark Tank India. And I'll be speaking to one such entrepreneur today because his partner is in the factory, so we'll be speaking to one of them today. Well, think about this. An alcoholic beverage made by fermenting honey mixed with water. Sounds delish? Well, let's ask the founders, one of them, Nitin Vishwas and Rohan Rehani of Moonshine Meads, who have created quite a stir with this being India's first meads. Meads are the oldest and the most versatile drink known to mankind. And Moonshine's mission is to bring back the elixir of the gods to this and the future century lovers of all things craft. Well, their USP is that the ingredients that they are constantly experimenting with to bring fresh varieties of meads. Nitin has over 15 years of experience across multiple sectors such as healthcare, foods, high-tech, manufacturing, and infrastructure. And Rohan has over 15 years of experience in core manufacturing as well as M&A. So like I was telling you earlier, they had a stint on Shark Tank India. And for those who haven't watched, please go ahead and watch it because they had a grand entrance, something that was totally unique. And we're going to find out more about that. So I would also like to tell our viewers that throughout this interview, I'll ask a couple of questions about their journey. And the top 3 answers will get something fabulous, some fabulous giveaways. So do stay tuned. So hi Nitin and welcome to the KYE platform. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. So please tell us how this journey started and why didn't you guys want to go down the 9-to-5 path, but why entrepreneurs?
So we did start off as 9-to-5 paths and later on switched to entrepreneurship as more of an accident and less of, by design. We read about, so this was during the consulting stint where I read about meads on an in-flight magazine.
Okay.
And this was while flying somewhere in Europe, and I remember taking a few pictures, and this is way back in 2014,
okay,
and sending it down to Rohan and telling him that, here's something that we've never heard of. And we always had plans to sort of do this, make beer just for ourselves at home. But then mead sounded quite interesting. So we then found ourselves reading more about it, and soon sort of history meets mystery, right? You realize there's such a lot of, every civilization known to man meads have touched them before sort of beers and wines really came into being. And that sort of put us on a path of exploration, and one thing led to the other. And, Rohan and I go back a long time. So we always wanted to do something with together as a company of sorts.
Okay.
So this sort of just fell in a place where hobby soon became a passion, and then finally it ended up turning into a company, which is now a brand called Moonshine.
Right. And how did the name come about, Moonshine Meads?
Moonshine. So a lot of people who used to try our first early batches. So the word moonshine actually is very synonymous with folks during the Prohibition time in America, where alcohol wasn't permitted. They would be using corn alcohol to sort of distill it in the middle of the night on a full moon night, and then they would that was the story of moonshine and moonshiners. Because we used to make a category that was not well known, we just chose to stick to that name, because a lot of people, our friends, very often asked us, are you making moonshine? And we would say, no, we're not making moonshine, we're making mead. And then somehow the word moonshine mead, it just sort of had a good ring to it, so we stuck to that.
It does. Okay, nice. Yeah, it does have a good ring to it. So, what is it about this field that gives you a sense of accomplishment or satisfaction, that tells you that, okay, I am doing the right thing?
I think there are lots of little things, right? So every morning there are a few things that get you very excited, and as typical entrepreneurs, there are a bunch of things that totally sap you out. You keep wondering why you ever started.
Yeah.
So if you're asking more for the first set of questions, it is you making very rarely do you get an opportunity to paint against a white canvas, especially in the alcobev space. Gins are making a revival from what they were possibly 100 years ago or 70, 80 years ago. Similarly, different categories are coming back in waves. But here's a category that hasn't come back in any sort of way for over 500 to 800 years.
Yeah,
and possibly longer. So for us, it is literally, there is no baseline for anybody anywhere for this type of liquid. And that's actually very fascinating. It is exciting because you get to define the category. I mean, quite literally what Xerox did to photocopying is what we have an opportunity as Moonshine to do for meads. So that is something that's very exciting for us.
Correct. Absolutely. Have you seen the response with people? Like, are they open to trying it out? And like, what has the response been?
I think it's been very, very heartening, because initially, early days, I used to remember people were very scared to touch the bottle. They were like, what is this liquid? But I think, rather, if I take another 3 years behind from then, before, let's say, the advent of a brand like Bira, people were scared to touch any bottle that went beyond a Kingfisher or a Budweiser.
Yeah,
right?
Right.
And Bira gave everyone an opportunity to look at a bottle that does not have those two logos on it, and something new. New and something quirky. We were fortunate that a brand like Bira came up before us, because now we are literally riding that wave, because now somebody has broken the paradigm that a beer needs to taste like this.
Correct.
And now what we are doing is we're extending the category of beer and saying, you know what, it's not a beer, we're making something called a mead, which is even further away from what you have been trying so far. And because people have made that little shift with Bira, it's a lot easier to nudge them a little harder and take them towards a new category like what we make, that is mead.
Yeah.
So over the period of time, we are seeing more and more people try it, at least. And the youth in India is, I think, not quite fickle, they're quite explorative these days. They don't want to be caught drinking what their fathers and mothers tried.
Yeah, they want to try.
Which is a great thing for a brand like. They all want to try something new. And that's a great thing for us, because now we see them seeing the bottle. Our labels are very bright. A lot of art around it.
Yeah.
And we've tried to be that little bridge between, your cola drinking years and now if you decide and choose to migrate to alcohol,
right.
Why should your first alcohol be something that you acquire a taste for, which is all what we did, right? We picked up a bottle of beer and we didn't really like it 20 years back. But now we have a nice liquid, which is a great bridge between the colas and then the other liquors. And hopefully we can then slide into that little space in the brain called nostalgia. So that's something that we're trying to do.
Right. Very well said indeed, Nitin. So, when you guys started out, did you face any barriers or challenges, obstacles? And, how did you get past them? How did you overcome them?
I think the biggest obstacle that was there, like all entrepreneurs, I think all of us have these challenges.
Yeah.
For us, the biggest challenge has been trying to, kickstart a new category of alcohol. And we keep saying that before we started to put the product out in the market, 0% of the population knew about meads. Today, 0.0001% knows about meads. It's taken us 4 years to get that little one out there. So it's a fairly new category. So for us to get people to get liquid on lips, or what some people in the alcohol industry call LOL, right? To get LOL to happen has been the biggest challenge. But we slowly and steadily starting to see a lot more traction in the space, just because people are more explorative. So if your label is nice and your liquid inside the bottle is good, people will come. And price is not such a big hindrance to the current youth. I mean, once upon a time, we were very careful about how we spend. People today care about what they drink. They care about what they eat a lot more. And if they see a brand also caring for the same values that they like the brand a lot more. So that's something that we are trying to stick to. So we talk a lot about where we come from, how we make the product, every batch we show things being made in the factory, we show guavas being cut. So these things matter, and that aids more sampling, which is very important. But I think the biggest challenge then and today continues to remain getting people to open the first bottle and try it.
Yeah. Right. So you basically try to connect with the youth, and like you said, the youth is open to trying so many, different
Yes.
things. So you basically strike a chord with them, which I think is the right approach. So here I would like to ask our viewers a couple of questions. One, where did Nitin come across the word mead? Like, where was he? And where was he going? He said that initially in the interview. And secondly, what does LOL stand for? So in this here, like he just said it sometime back. So that's the second question. So first, where was he going? And second, what does LOL stand for? Okay. So, what are your goals and aspirations with regards to Moonshine Meads? Like, where do you want to take it in the future?
I think, like I started with this introduction, when you asked me, what is the one thing about mead that excites you? I said it's a white canvas. And this white canvas is not just in India, it's also globally. There are people who started meaderies before us, but there is ample opportunity to introduce meads the way we make it. We make it very fruit forward and we make it low alcohol here in India, whereas most of the meads outside, there are meads which also similar pattern in Americas, but predominantly meads have been high alcohol and 10%. So there's a huge opportunity for us to sort of take these meads, and mead comes from the Indo Latin word Medu, which comes from the Sanskrit word Madhu. So this little connection brings it back to this country. So there's a nice opportunity to take this as an alcohol made in India. And India is known for its fruits and its variety, mangoes, strawberries, and guavas and pineapples. Tropical country with a lot of tropical fruits. So this is great because we can try and use this as one of the bigger brands that sort of move out of the country, also explore globally. And that's something that we want to do with Moonshine. I think we have, like I keep saying, we have an ample opportunity to paint this white canvas in every country that we enter.
Absolutely.
And that is something that we want to do with meads.
Okay.
And I think quintessentially, meads are the most sustainable alcohol because we don't disrupt the food chain, right? So we're not asking the farmer to stop growing what he or she is growing and grow grains or grow grapes or grow potatoes. We are letting the farmer grow whatever he or she does. We are putting bee boxes there, improving his or her yield, improving the quality of the yield, and giving them a secondary source of income. And the more bees you have, the better it is for the world around us. So in a way, the more mead drinking actually gets popular, we hope that that's actually going to make a change to the world as well. So that's a slightly more idealistic, call, but we believe that there is a lot of opportunity for this.
Right. Absolutely. And we wish you all the best for this. So, when you started from there till now, you can even speak for Rohan as well. How has this venture changed you? Like, do you think it has brought about any changes?
As people or as a company?
Or in general, like, behavior of people. It could be any change of any sort. Good, bad, anything.
So we've become short-tempered as individuals, because I think that's, I believe, is more a function of COVID. I think the amount of ups and downs we've had, we've just become very irritable on small changes that happen now. But I think more as a business, I think we've become, we understand consumers a lot better.
Right.
Initially, we wouldn't understand how a consumer is thinking because we were so much in love with our product and our category. We never spared a time to understand what he or she has in her mind. Now we listen, we understand what the consumer is looking for. We're able to touch on those specific aspects. So as a brand, we are more in tune with our consumer base. Which earlier, for example, we even read our consumer wrong. In the beginning, our labels had big M and a small m, it had a line. We believed that our consumer was 30-year-old or above, traveled to a few countries abroad, wants to come back and experience something similar in India. That was our makeup of the consumer, has disposable income. Today, we realize a consumer is 21 to 27. That prompted a change in our labels. We realize a consumer is not willing to compromise on value. Our consumer is looking for a good quality product and is willing to pay for it. And he or she is much younger than what we thought he or she is. So these little changes have changed the way we look at ourselves. And that's one of the reasons our brand also looks very different from what it started as. So there is a huge transition that we've made.
Right. And you know exactly which audience to cater to now. It's like a much younger group, not something very.
that's one of the reasons our team, I think both Rohan and I are the only 38-year-olds, right? So the entire team is below 27.
Yeah, so we get a different perspective, right? Like what they think versus what you
very
think.
true.
Yeah. So, before I go on to my last question, please tell us about Shark Tank India and your experience on it and the grand entrance that was with the music and everything and the outfits, and why did y'all dress up like that?
So it was an idea that came to, so we didn't choose to dress up like that. If that's something I want to tell right up front.
Okay.
We were suggested that it would be a great way to get eyeballs. At the end of the day, the television, that was our first experience with sets and Film City as well. So for us, everything was new then.
New, yeah.
And I think they just said that, you've got such an interesting category and such an interesting beverage, and a little bit of shosha always goes a long way. It's finally all television, right? So go ahead and do what it takes to sort of get people to give you that 15 minutes of time. And that's exactly what we did. So we ensured that it was a grand entrance, and we were talking about something that was, for the lack of a better word, sexy. Alcohol is always considered something very cool, and that because of that, it sort of aided the whole transition to the product that was in showcase.
Right.
So that was the reason we did what we did.
Right.
It was a good experience. I mean, more than anything else, it was very interesting to see the kind of mix of people and entrepreneurs who had come to the show. We saw people coming from really, really small towns and folks with our kind of backgrounds as well, who have grown up in a city. And interesting ideas. I think India is bursting with ideas which sometimes are just downright hardcore, fabulous jugaad to something that's really, really well thought through, and they've already done a certain prototyping and execution. So we are staring at a decade of a lot of change in terms of what consumers are going to get to see. And that was a very interesting part. And of course, then the taam jham and the lights and camera were something that took a while to get used to. 5 days of practice in the sets. We realized that how much of effort goes into a 30-minute camera series that comes on television. And it's fascinating to see that world.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing your experience. So, what would you like to say to the upcoming and budding entrepreneurs, because the ideas are all there, they're brimming, but how to go about it and when to take the first step and how to take the first step. So what would you like to say to them?
The first day to take the first step is actually yesterday. I think if you ask me, I quit my day job finally in 2018 Jan to start Moonshine in Feb, as in we launched in Feb. So I really waited till the last day. My partner quit everything much earlier, almost 1.5 years before me. But if I were to do this again, I would possibly start probably a year earlier. I would have quit everything and gotten into this full time. There's no right day to start. If you're looking for stars to align and things to work out before you really jump, then you will never take the plunge. So at some point in times, you just need to stop trying to look at things rationally. If you feel passionate enough, and if that piece of thing keeps you up late at night thinking about it, then you probably have most of what you need to get started.
Right.
Once you get started, it's important to keep your mind open, not get too bogged down by what your thoughts are, be willing to change and maneuver your way to your first milestone. I think those are the only two big things. Post that, either your consumer will say it's not working, or either you yourself will start to realize that it's not working. It's one of the two. But the first two steps are very important. Take the plunge when you realize it's not letting you sleep.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Take the plunge. Exactly. So Nitin, thank you so much for coming on the KYE platform and speaking with us. It was really nice speaking with you, and we want to wish Moonshine Meads all the best for the future, and take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Bye-bye.